Any second now. So Peter, maybe we can start by having you introduce yourself and then introducing the topic, and then we could probably have a discussion. Does that sound good?
Sure, definitely.
Okay.
Hi. Hi, Councilmember Greg. My name is Peter Rickman. I am here today to speak to you about Palo Alto's participation in the SFO Roundtable. This has actually been a topic that I've been following since the implementation of NextGen Air. I think that's actually procedure you joining the Palo Alto Council. So some of this you might be unfamiliar with. If I ask some questions that you are unfamiliar with, that maybe that's something that we can follow with
No
on
problem.
on a secondary call.
The reason why I do office hours is because I want to hear we're supposed to be representatives of the people, and so it's really important to actually talk to the people. Otherwise, it's hard to represent them. And
Exactly.
it's also a great way for me to learn about issues and nuances. So please go ahead.
Okay, well, fabulous. So in regards to that, I would like to say thank you. Thank you for holding these office hours and actually responding. In regards to the council members that I've requested a meeting with, you're the only one that I was actually able to meet with. Mayor Lydia Koo has joined one SFO meeting, but since that time, other than that, I don't know what availability here looks like, but this is not the setting for this. So for SFO Roundtable though, let's talk about that. So cool question, Shireen John, may I ask about you, how you
Oh, she's one of my legislative aides, so she helps to kind of run traffic. So that we have these office hours back to back. So she kind of helps with that, and then
awesome.
helps to take notes, and then also sometimes those follow up, right? So sometimes there's like let's say you had a question about something, right, or you needed us to help you with something. She would be the one to help follow up.
Okay, awesome, great. Well, thank you, Shane. Excellent. So getting back on track with SFO Roundtable, my guest question is, what is Palo Alto doing to join the SFO Roundtable? Because based on my understanding, there was a vote by the SFO Roundtable members in about 2021 in regards to it, and it kind of got shut down. So I'm asking, what is Palo Alto doing in regards to lobbying the cities that voted against it? San Bruno, San Mateo, additionally Woodside, Atherton, Hillsborough were all members of the SFO Roundtable that voted against us. What are we doing in regards to lobbying them to allow us? Additionally, what are we doing in regards to lobbying the county to lobby San Mateo County? Because at the end of the day, the way that I view this, it's SFO is a business that's operating in San Mateo County. And as Palo Alto residents, we are at the end of the day, in my opinion, de facto subsidizing a for-profit business with our airspace and our happiness and our ability to go outside. And we've been deprived our ability to become stakeholders in the process and adjudicating this process in regards to how flight patterns work. If you had the time to review the meeting notes from the 17th, they would have showed you that the concentration of flights over Palo Alto is significantly higher than any other city around here. So significantly higher than Menlo Park, significantly higher than San Carlos, significantly higher than Mountain View. But in regards to San Mateo County, it seems like they have a business that's great for them, but they've pushed off those environmental effects because noise pollution is a registered federal registered pollutant. So they are pushing off these environmental effects on a county next door and telling the residents of that county that they are not able to become stakeholders in the process. So I would like to know what Palo Alto is doing to adjudicate that, remedy that. Are there any legal ramifications that Palo Alto has explored? Or is that's portion one of my question? Portion two.
Wait, maybe before we get to portion two, maybe I could address portion one first.
Sure.
So first, let me just talk to you as a fellow resident, right? So I live here in College Terrace, moved here in 2004. And from the time I moved here to now, I tell you, the airplane noise has gone crazy, right? So I for one, really sympathize with the air pollution noise impact. And in fact, I don't know if you know this, but last year I ran for US Congress. And one of the reasons why I ran for US Congress is because I just felt that we don't have really proper representation on this issue. And there's been a lot of lip service, but no real action. In fact, if anything, has gotten worse.
Yep.
So I personally care about this issue, and I am totally with you on that in terms of the impacts. Now, so let's talk about how to actually affect change. So first of all, that FAA is a federal, it's a federal organization. So technically, it's controlled by the president. Okay, so it kind of reports up into the president, and for the amount of money that Palo Altans have donated to Biden's administration, you would think they would change it, right? But unfortunately, it has not. Right? It is what it is, right? But yeah, so it's kind of screwed up. During the last term, we had Trump, right, Republican, and he definitely didn't like California, definitely didn't like Palo Alto, right, because it funded his competitor.
Yep.
But it was a Republican administration. We had a Democratic lobbyist in Washington D.C. trying to represent us, which is crazy because, I mean, when you have a Republican administration, you should have Republican lobbyists to try to, lobby the Department of Transportation, right, the FAA, on this. And so you may not follow it very closely, but on City Council, I've been saying, like, first of all, it's been 10 years or some ungodly amount of time when we've had this problem, and I think the lobbyists we've had on this have been totally ineffective, right? I mean, we've been paying them a lot of money, but what results have they yielded? And I have not seen anything. So I've been pushing for those lobbyists to get replaced. And finally, this year, they have been replaced, which is good, right? So maybe we get something better. But the fundamental problem we had was we had Democratic lobbyists for a Republican administration, which is totally made zero sense, okay? So what we need to do is we need to hire someone who was part of the FAA, it has the connections to push.
So Greg, quickly. So I understand the lobbying component. Yeah. So in regards to that, as I understand it, so in regards to the process of decision making. So again, I've been following this since the implementation of NextGen here. So I would say I'm relatively familiar in terms of the separation of powers.
I don't know if people. So I know you've been talking about the SFO Roundtable and San Mateo, but and while it's good for us to be, I think we should be part of it because we should share our voice. It actually doesn't have too much power. The power really is with the FAA, and the FAA is, they were looking for fuel efficiency and reducing congestion in the sky. But what that did is it put, a humongous cloud of sound right above us. Right, that's what it did, and so when I met with I forgot the guy's name, but I met with this guy when I was in Washington D.C. I can't remember his name, but basically they were looking at spreading out the flights again, so that no one community is being hurt, and they were going to try to beta test this at I think the Boston airport or the SFO airport, and this happened just slightly before COVID, and unfortunately, while they had the technical plan to do it, they never actually implemented it. And I just feel that given the amount of money this community gives to the party in power, it should be changed.
So I think that's one aspect of it. Yes, Palo Alto is Palo Alto residents. I feel like, yes, we donate a lot to the Democratic Party, and we as the constituents, this is speaking for Anna Eshu, but namely this is more for Jackie Spear. Jackie Spear actually launched a full-on initiative to limit the SFO roundtable to existing members. So that's why I'm asking in regards to the lobbying initiatives for the city of Palo Alto, because the SFO roundtable, again, so this is why, sorry for this. So in regard to the last meeting, it was highlighted again that the SFO roundtable is the only communication pathway direct communication pathway in between communities and the FAA. You can do an end around them, but those comments are not weighted the same way as when they are coming up from the SFO roundtable. So by Palo Alto not having a voice on the SFO roundtable, that has, let me finish, that has further disenfranchised Palo Alto residents. So yes, it's true. The lobbying has been ineffectual. We can talk about Palo Alto's fiscal spending at I would say at a different call, because that's actually part of my question number 2. So question number 2 is, because it sounds like Palo Alto still doesn't have what I was hoping to see, I guess, Greg, what you could come up with is a direct lobbying directive for the city of Palo Alto. What are we looking to achieve? From it sounds like higher visibility amongst the FAA and understanding the value of Palo Alto, but that's not, again, what the value of a city lobbyist is going to do. As a private entity, that might be valuable, but the city of Palo Alto, that's not where it's going to be. Getting to reform the FAA rules in regards to the SFO roundtable stakeholdership, because that's what needs to be reformed. And they should be looking at that. And you could align it with, as you're mentioning, the value of what Palo Alto brings, and not looking to highlight that, but that would be a certain element. And then additionally, having a secondary direct track to whoever is the regional director of the FAA in regards to flight plans, and knowing that Palo Alto has to have a voice in regards to this, because otherwise these concepts are unequitable, they're not equitable, right? Because if you have stakeholders that don't have a voice, that's not an equitable system. And that brings me to part 2. Part 2 is Palo Alto was supposed to submit an EIR, an environmental impact report, in regards to the expansion of SFO. Other communities, such as Woodside, Hillsborough, included something that's called a flight ceiling. So that means it limits how low overpassing, non-terminating flights can fly over their cities. I would like to know from you, who from the city of Palo Alto was responsible for drafting this EIR? Additionally, why the city of Palo Alto did not include a flight ceiling in its EIR? And secondly, what has happened to the careers of those people that submitted that document? Because this goes back to something that my family has noticed for a longest time in regards to Palo Alto and the administration of city employees, the lack of accountability and the waste of funds. Because this is something that Palo Alto would not be fighting had it been done properly by city staff. There should have been a flight ceiling of at least 10,000 feet. If you look at the city of Woodside, they have a flight ceiling of 10,000 feet. And that precludes the ability of SFO to do any type of flight design that lowers that. Had Palo Alto done anything to that effect, we wouldn't be here today. So again, this goes back to the waste of resources and its further impacts on the community here. So again, I hope, Shireen, we can follow up and identifying what's happened with the initial EIR drafters, what's happened to their careers with the city of Palo Alto, whether the city of Palo Alto is actually completing its other necessary task of completing, removing hurdles, I think, for residents, and not being a burden for residents, and looking to uplift its residents. Because currently, when I look at the city, and I was reading the Palo Alto Weekly recently, they're looking to expand staff. You know what? I love that idea, but I would love that idea if it's actually supporting what residents would like and the value. However, when I've dealt with city staff, that is not what I get. They're generally not very professional, and they're not very well versed in what they're supposed to do, especially on the I would say environmental side. So in speaking about the people that draft policies, it's pathetic. So thank you very much for your time, and hopefully
you want me to respond?
Yes, I would love that.
Okay. So I generally agree with you in terms of accountability. I actually think that these reports should have people's names on them, right? Because it holds people accountable. And what would probably be good is to have people's names and how much of that report cost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but some of these things we have consultants do, and they bill at like $500, $1,000 an hour.
And why are we wasting money on consultants when we have staff? We have the highest staff ratio to any other city, higher than Mountain View, higher than at times similarly staffed to San Francisco, and that's a city and a county. And we're still hiring out,
well, not just that, but if you look at
that's a waste of funds.
If you look how much we pay per employee, right? I mean, some of them clear like $500,000 a year, right? So it's not like we're underpaying people either, right? So
yes, exactly.
Yes, I totally agree with you on the fiscal matter and as well as accountability. So I think we should, if we issue a report, it shouldn't be some anonymous report from city staff. It should be somebody, I guess and city manager says he did it, which I guess he could sign off on it, but still I think having the individual person on there, like having their name on there is actually really a way to hold people accountable, right? And so people have pride of ownership, right, of doing the right thing. The other thing I think that's important is and I've been pushing for a long time here in the city, is for us to also have some sort of net promoter score, some sort of feedback mechanism on the services that the city provides, whether it's a staff report or development center or utilities, whatever it happens to be, because I think the only way you improve is through feedback. And for us elected officials, if you don't like what we do, we just don't elect us again, right? But for staff, which tends to outlast multiple city councils, they're like fixtures, and there's no feedback mechanism. It's really hard to hold them accountable. It's really hard to actually fire people too, by the way. And so I think that leads to issues, right? So Shereen, if you can add to our list here of stuff, I think the question here he asked was, who wrote the report and why was it not in there? So we should find out. I think get back to
and
do you say his name is Peter or Peter?
Peter.
Peter, okay.
Peter.
That's a lot easier. Okay. So if you could put a note to get back to Peter on this, that would be awesome.
Yeah. And in regards to that too, maybe as an overarching thing for budgetary concerns, is expenses towards outside city contractors and consultants comparable to jobs and positions that the city is already doing. So double checking the redundancy. For me, it's really interesting when I see out of state consultants hired to do an impact report for Palo Alto in this area, namely because when you actually read through the reports, they're wrong in their evaluations of the communities and certain of the proposals. So and just the baseline's incorrect, and it's clear that they only use Google Maps to create it, and and you're paying top dollar for these consultants. So my question is, why not hire in-state consultants who have a further understanding and deeper understanding of the state and political issues here, and also micro communities that are established within Palo Alto in the Mid-Peninsula? Because again, we can talk about, let's say, consultants and some of this at a later time.
It's a little bit more there's bigger issues than that, which is a lot of times like former city employees become consultants and who are hired back by the city, right, at a much higher rate. So so there's definitely issues, right? And I think in government, I think it's different than in private sector. In private sector, you have to really kind of push efficiency because let's say you didn't get a good experience from Amazon, or Amazon charges you too much, then you buy it from somewhere else, or you buy it from Walmart or whatever, right? But in the government, there's only one choice, right? There's a monopoly.
So, however, in regards to that, my statement, I believe it's the value of local accountability and being able to identify and list who potential partners are. So at minimum, I believe the council should create a memorandum of understanding of rehiring consultants or hiring consultants at certain expense rates, and looking at, if you're looking to spend more than X amount of dollars, that needs to be brought to the council and explained by the department head why his staff can't complete a project, and he needs to bring in a former employee to complete a project which his current staff can't complete, because that's what I'm hearing. And that if I heard that in any other type of a setting, I would say it's a management issue and an accountability issue, right? Because we're saying that this thing, but anyways, we're going back. So yes, I believe the city of Palo Alto has some issues, but I think bringing some accountability and some structure in regards to how consultants are hired, that might be able to alleviate some of those tensions. So anyways, Greg, thank you. And Shireen, I think you have my email as well. Please let me know. And that way we can follow up in regards to this, and Greg as well. I think that's a great idea. I think if Palo Alto directors or subunit heads are signing off on these environmental impact reports, that would actually increase accountability and ownership of documents.
Yeah.
And
but I do think that at least some of the reports, Jonathan, who's the director of planning, actually does sign off on some of those, but it doesn't go down much below that.
So maybe I take a look at maybe having lower level people signing off on that, and also being more accountable in what type of consultants they hire in regards.
Yeah. I think I don't know if you follow, but our budget this year, we are like spending down a bunch of stabilization reserve, which basically means that we're negative, right? We're running a deficit this year. You know, so like our revenues is growing at like maybe 1%, but our expenses are growing like 10%, right? So we have a big time problem here. And so no, definitely appreciate your concerns about just being, you know, fiscally wise.
Yeah, excellent. Well, great. So again, I love the office hours. So thank you again for hosting them and having this reach out. And I love the idea of providing a feedback survey, maybe on neighborhood or something like that, getting Palo Alto residents to provide a feedback of how they encounter.
I think we should, and every
staff and
every interaction with the city, like kind of like you buy something on Amazon, they instantly send you, oh, rate this, you know, transaction. Or you go to McDonald's, say, oh, get a free hamburger if you fill out the survey, right?
Yeah.
I think getting feedback from people instantly on when services are rendered, whether it's a staff report or development center or utilities or whatever it happens to be, I think it kind of brings us to modern practices, right? So if you look at all the top organizations that win all these JD Power's customer service awards, they all have these kind of feedback mechanism to kind of hear, because I view government as a service organization to the people, right? But it's the one service organization that doesn't really get feedback, which is unfortunate because it's also a monopoly, and so it doesn't have the competitive pressure to improve and be efficient.
Yeah. So I think it's up to you guys to identify the creative ways to get that communication flowing, so it's not just one-sided. Sure. So with that, okay, I'll leave you guys with that. And thank you again for your time.
Of course. Okay. Have a great day. Okay.
You too. Bye-bye.